Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday. At this time, we'll entertain public comment. Seeing no one in the gallery for public comment. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Item 1 is pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, Personnel Matter, Conference with Labor Negotiator Judy Hawkins, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding Deputy Sheriff's Association, Sheriff's Management Unit, Service Employees International Union, and Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association negotiations.
Okay.
No.
At this time, we'll...
No.
I'm sorry. Oh, on that item. Okay, then we'll have public comment on this item. Seeing no one in the gallery for public comment, Madam Clerk.
Item 2 is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2.
And at this time, there's no public comment once again, so we'll adjourn to closed session. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting here for Tuesday for County of Calaveras. At this time, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I think that'd be a great idea. We have you lead us, sir.
All right. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
So our report out from our closed sessions this morning. Item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, Personnel Matter, Conference with Labor Negotiator Judy Hawkins, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding Deputy Sheriff's Association, Sheriff's Management Unit, Service Employees International Union, and Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association negotiations. There was no reportable action taken. Item 2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, and significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. On a 5-0 vote, the board directed staff to execute full release and agreement between the county and Farm Sanctuary.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time, is there any announcements by board members or staff? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Item 3 is from the Board of Supervisors to adopt a proclamation recognizing the achievements of Ryan Hereford.
Thank you. I'd like to take the honor of presenting this proclamation. It's a proclamation recognizing the achievements of Ryan Hereford. Whereas Ryan Hereford has already dedicated much of his life to community service, and whereas Ryan has volunteered to assist community groups and events such as the Murphys Business Association, the Murphys Community Club, Irish Days, Murphys Open House, Grape Stomp, and Day of the Dead, and whereas Ryan has contributed to projects to benefit the community, such as the restoration of garbage cans on Murphys Main Street, and most recently, the planning and construction of a 60-foot pedestrian bridge across Murphys Creek. And whereas Ryan's scholastic career has indicated the creation and membership in Bret Hart's first technology club, the Cy Bullfrogs, being a peer tutor for students focusing on math and science, and student government. And whereas Ryan has achieved the rank of Eagle Scout and raised a flagpole at the Bret Hart baseball fields. And whereas Ryan has received awards including the Rotary Student of the Month, Superintendent's Honor Roll for all 4 years of high school, Athletic Scholarship for cross country, track and field, and swimming, membership in the California Scholastic Federation, the CSF, being one of the top 10 students academically this year and most improved musician for playing the tuba. And therefore, we're going to stop right there. Is there a motion from the board?
So moved, Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any public comment? I'm going to allow that. I'll call for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors would like to extend their congratulations to Ryan Hereford, extend their best wishes for his future endeavors, and express their appreciation for his dedication to the county and its elements. Passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras, State of California, this 27th day of June, 2017. Congratulations.
I don't have the camera yet.
We're going to have you go from right up there in front.
Thanks. 50 years old.
94 and 88. Woohoo. Okay.
Yvonne and Jim, why don't you guys come over on this side?
All right, everybody.
Ready? Smile. For lots of pictures.
We like this. Way to go, Ryan. Way to go, Mom and Dad.
Okay.
I just wanted to say a few words that this project wouldn't have had happened, and there was a lot of people to thank, especially Robert Packinger and Scott Anderson from Public Works. Without Packinger, this project would have never happened. I just wanted to say thank you to him.
You're welcome, Ryan. Good job, young man. Madam Clerk?
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start public comments, I want to make a couple of brief statements. Number one, we're having difficulty with our audio when we're not speaking into the microphone. So I'm going to request everybody to make sure that, even our board members and staff, to speak directly into the microphone. Don't turn your head because they can't hear that in TV land. So if you do that, I really appreciate it. Okay, so everybody is clear. This is a general public comment period. This is a time to bring up any topic that is not on today's agenda. There will be another item-specific public comment period for each item on the regular agenda and any items pulled from the consent agenda. So if you're here to talk about a topic or item that is on today's agenda, for instance, our budget, please wait until we get to that item-specific public comment period to address the board. Now, I welcome public comments on topics not on today's agenda. Please step forward. Thank you.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Double Springs, bringing legends from Double Springs. 1896, a little girl was born on Double Springs named Sadie. For as long as she could remember, every spring, an old Indian couple would walk down from West Point. A little old Indian lady would be leading a pony. It had a couple of sticks dragging behind with a blanket stretched between it. And this little old man, all crumpled up, would lay in those blankets. They'd come down to Double Springs and camp on their property all summer long. When they first got there, the little old lady'd take her little old man down by the creek, and she'd gather purple thistle when it was tender. She'd get a bouquet of thistle. She'd cover her little old man's head and groin with leather, and she'd take the thistle and she'd start whacking at him. And at first he'd yelp a little bit, but after a while he got quiet. Then she'd turn him over and she'd whack him on the other side. And they'd repeat this for days. She thinks about a week. At the end of that week, that little old man could get up, he could walk. They spent the rest of that summer hunting, fishing, and trapping, and harvesting, and trading. And at the end of the summer, they'd go back up the hill to West Point. This time the old man would be leading the pony. Their blanket would be filled with supplies, and the old woman walked behind to make sure nothing fell off. She said she remembered them doing that as long as she could remember, until she was about 7 or 8. Then she couldn't, then they never came no more. So I've always wondered, because she's not here to ask the question, did she mean this purple thistle, or did she mean this purple thistle? Because they both grow on Double Springs. And I've always wondered how well it might work. So I'd like to know if there's any volunteers here. I mean, we got some crusty old barnacles up here that might have
Crusty
a pain or
old
two.
barnacles.
So I wouldn't mind trying it out. We could say it's in the name of progressive holistic medical exploration or something. Anyway, we might get rid up in some medical journals. Think of it. Country Hicks rediscover ancient cure for arthritis.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you very much.
We get beat up enough sometimes. Now we got this.
I won't come at you, I promise.
Okay.
Watch out.
Hello, Bill Wilson, District 1. Loss of revenues could follow local bans. While it is correct that Prop 64 clearly allows locals to ban commercial cannabis operations and outdoor personal cultivation, it does not mention that the proposition denies any share in the revenues recouped statewide through taxes on marijuana sales to the locals that ban these activities. Section 34019F3C of the AMA states that funds will be dispersed, through the Board of State and Community Corrections for making grants to local governments to assist with law enforcement, fire protection, or other local programs addressing public health and safety associated with the implementation of the Control, Regulate, and Tax Adult Use of Marijuana Act. However, the section goes on to state The board shall not make any grants to local governments which have banned cultivation, including personal cultivation under section 11362.2B3 of the Health and Safety Code, outdoors upon the grounds of a private residence. If you ban outdoor 6 plants, you receive no state funding, period. Not a dime, folks. Again, I grant that we did not pass 64 locally in our county. We did pass Measure C. Measure C is a tax on commercial cultivation, the manufacturing, and dispensaries. That was a vote of the people. It is illegal for any legislative body to tamper with said voter-approved initiatives. It is illegal. It is called malfeasance, gentlemen. A ban at this point in time, after a voter-approved initiative, is legislative tampering, and it is malfeasance, and spending money on doing that is illegal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Ms. Davis.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the board. Leslie Davis, County Assessor, and I'm appearing before you today as the County Assessor to report that we are in the midst and hopefully within the hour of closing the 2017 assessment roll. That roll total will be $6.682 billion net of all assessments. You don't have to take notes, Mr. Clapp. I'm going to hand this to you in a moment. It represents an increase of more than $500 million over the 2016 assessment roll, and the difference is an increase of 8.14%. We continue to have a backlog of work that has not been completed. That backlog is comprised of change in ownership and new construction that could not be assessed due to staffing limitations. In fact, we have nearly 4,000 new construction and transfer events that have not been valued, and that represents approximately 3.5 full-time equivalent appraisers work for an entire year. So as they start the coming year, they will have enough work to keep 3.5 appraisers busy, plus the normal workload for the 2018 assessment roll. I'd like to acknowledge the effort my staff has made to complete the assessment roll. When you get to your Butte Fire report, I'll report on what they actually have been working on this past year, which has been primarily Butte Fire roll reductions. However, in the last month or two, I shifted their focus to declines in value. And I shifted that focus toward decline in value for a key reason that it's important for you to know. We were not able to look at properties that were in decline in value status last year, which means if those property values went up, they were not reflected on the 2016 roll. I think you can tell by this increase, reflecting them on the 2017 roll is going to be very difficult for a number of our constituents. About 14,000 of those constituents are going to see major increases this year because there was no increase last year. So as you get phone calls, and by the way, the letters will be going out this week, I'd like you to remember that so that you can help answer those questions as well as my staff. I do have a copy for each of you and the clerk of the board, but not for county council, so.
Leslie, thank you to you and your staff for doing this.
Thank you. They made a heck of an effort, and I really think it would help for the board to acknowledge that effort that they've made this year.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Any further public comments?
I understand you guys were sent a letter by CALM. It's Citizens Against Legalizing Marijuana. And I'm going to read the letter that you were supposed to have received. June 21st, 2017. Dear elected official, the two most important responsibilities of elected officials at any level of government are first and foremost to protect the people, and secondly, to manage tax dollars. Making marijuana is a very dangerous drug. Readily available threatens your ability to do either. Young people aged 12 to 25 have the highest consumption rate of marijuana. This group is under the threshold of a mature brain. Marijuana causes physical changes in the developing brain, reducing cognitive skills, memory, and motivation. It can cause a permanent loss of IQ by up to 8 points. I could never afford that, which moves a student a full category from average to below average. Marijuana users are 5 times more susceptible to suicide and 7 times more susceptible to mental illness. It is a causal factor in psychotic breaks, leading to violent acts, mental illness, including schizophrenia and paranoia, bipolar disorder, addiction, birth defects, and impaired driving. All this translates to more crime, homelessness, academic failure, traffic deaths, and incalculable damage to our environment. Obviously, there is huge money in illicit drugs. The cartels prove that. Cartels are not concerned with public health and safety or the related social costs. As with alcohol and tobacco, the social costs are 10 times the tax revenues. Increased marijuana use will be no different. Colorado's experience has shown that actual taxes on marijuana are significantly less than what was projected, and they do not come close to covering the increased cost of law enforcement, ER visits, DUI, traffic deaths, regulation, and crime. Additionally, the great increase in use by youth leads to very high school dropout rates. On the news, just this last week, a young mother lost her 2 children in her car because she was trying to teach her child a lesson.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Board. Beth Whitkey, District 2 voter. Everything that I just heard on that letter is incorrect. There are studies that debunk the impaired driving. The taxes in Colorado are over $140 million a year. That doesn't go into cartel budgets, if you want to call it that. They found that harm reduction is a major benefit to safe access. States that have legal medical marijuana see a 25% decrease in opiate deaths. There is a decrease in emergency room visits because of prescription overdose. Youth use is down in states where it's legal. It becomes passé and boring. Many of the studies that talk about cognition don't look at the difference between use and misuse. These cognition impairments are debatable. Also, sorry, I'm out of breath. It's important to understand that if youth are exposed to this, those impairment tests, that is not a lasting metric. I am not advocating for youth recreational use. You will not find anyone in CCA advocating for youth recreational use. There are very seriously ill children and adults who benefit from non-psychoactive cannabis. There is no reason for this prohibition. the negative outcomes with crime are a result of prohibition. I wish that we could move this debate forward, stop with these ancient, disproved statistics, and get busy with recovering from the Butte fire, recovering from the bark beetle infestation, dealing with the storm damage that we've had. All of this takes money, it takes staff. And I'd also very much like to hear from someone on the board how many Measure C dollars have been collected to date. Suddenly this is requiring a freedom of information filing, and I don't understand why there isn't transparency in this budget talk about how much cannabis dollars, how many have come in to date. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, Susan Morris. I just got a copy of this
Ms.
flyer.
Morris,
that
could I
just-
have you speak in the microphone for us?
Sure, sorry.
Thank you.
And I did hear you say that, too.
That's okay.
Okay, anyway, I just received a copy of this flyer, and I think you each did, too. And I had never read it before, so I'm going to assume it's correct, what it says at the bottom of here, but we'd all probably have to check it. But I'd just like to bring your attention. It says at the bottom corner, oppose marijuana use. American Medical Association, American Cancer Society, American Epilepsy Society, American Academy of Pediatrics, American MS Society, National Eye Institute, and American Lung Association, and others. So there's another side to this story, I think. As I said, I just read this, but I think that this organization is probably reputable. I've heard it even up here. I think I've heard this discussion. But anyway, just wanted to bring your attention to it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ben Stopper, District 5. A few months ago, our new CAO, Lutz, was introduced to everyone in here, and I talked to him briefly out in the crowd. I voiced my concern. I asked him a question. Do you live here? Do you plan on moving here? He kind of looked at me funny. I explained to him my concern in that is there has been many people that work for Calaveras County in the past that haven't decided to move here or live here and bring their concerns for the county here personally. He let me know that he was going to be renting here soon and looking for a place to move here, and I was very happy that he said as much. You know, it brought a little hope into my mind, you know, not someone else using Calaveras County as a stepping stool for another job. I just want to thank Mr. Lutz. Just in the few months, I understand he's done a lot of work. There's been a lot of hard financial work going in, and I think he's been doing a good job for you guys, and I actually think you guys made a wise choice in hiring him for the position. To go on, the line item in the budget that's not there, that was just brought up, Measure C. We collect those taxes. Even if you aren't going to use that money, and you don't plan on using that money because there's a choice down the road that may become an issue in using that money, it should be shown as revenue. Even if you have to go down and show that you're not going to use it inside the budget, you know, possible extraction of it later. It's
Mr.
there.
Stopper, let me interrupt you. I think we are discussing the budget.
Right. Yes, sir, but this line item is not inside the budget.
Okay. All right, I'll allow that. Go ahead, sir.
But agreed. A little shaky. Close to the line, sir. Thank you for trying to call me on it.
Oh, boy.
I believe it's public information. I think that any revenue coming in should be revealed to the public clearly on how much is taken in. I would hate to have to go to the office over here next door and put in a public information request every day so that I can start getting amounts 10 days later as we move forward. I would appreciate if you guys would consider putting that into the budget so then I wouldn't have to talk about it during public comment next time. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoffer. By the way, Mr. Lutz is a new resident of my district. Any further public comments? I'm sorry, what's that?
Officially not till tomorrow, is that correct?
Well, actually, technically, if you go to the recorder, it's probably Thursday, but.
Good morning, Board. My name is Cliff Edson, District 1. And I agree, I think Mr. Lutz is, he's got his hands full. I think he's doing an amazing job considering the convoluted budget that we have. It's very hard to understand. There's a lot of hidden things in there, twisted things that maybe should be straightened out, and I'm looking forward to Mr. Lutz straightening it out. Makes it easier for the board actually to be able to understand things. Like in 2008, for instance, they took the position control list out of the budget so that you couldn't see in each department what the dollars were related to as far as employees. Made it very hard for us as a board to be able to see what was going on there. Second, I just heard a comment. There's two sides to every story. There is two sides to every story. I'd like to tell you about a little story that I had. 5 years ago, I was driving back from a doctor's appointment, and just outside of San Andreas, on the big turn there where the side rails were, I had somebody coming in my direction, in my lane, at 55 miles an hour. And tried to get out of the way. They tried to go with me. Back and forth like that until finally I was able to squeeze by them. They clipped the back of my truck a little bit. It damaged my truck, and I ended up hitting the bank and flipping onto the side. It's not a fun experience. Coming to find out, the person that was driving the other vehicle was on 30 Oxycontin that they just picked up that same day from a prescription. So there's two sides to every story. 30 seconds. And it's the individual that makes those choices. And so I think it's a wise thing to also consider the impact that you just heard the assessor talk about the rise that we're having. You might want to consider that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other further public comment?
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is George Fry, and I live in District 1. And I would like to thank you for hiring Timothy Lutz. This man is amazing. His learning curve was really short in terms of putting this budget together. I've never seen anything like it before. Also, he's very approachable. I had an opportunity to meet with him for a few minutes and learn some information that I was seeking. And I want to thank the board for hiring him. He's just outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
I'm going to run out of money in paying audience members by the end of this meeting. I'm just going to say.
We're going to discuss budget here.
If you were in the Rotary Club, let me tell you.
Is there any other further comments by the public? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda. The consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Before we go into this, I want to advise everyone that we're going to be looking at a new procedure starting today. That will be each individual agendized item will be presented by staff first, or the person that would pull an item from the agenda. Then the board will have the opportunity with staff to discuss any issues that they may have concerns on regarding that. Then we'll open it up to public comment on that particular item. I feel that this gives the opportunity for the public to listen to the discussion by the board prior to making their public comments and making them more effective and related to the issue at hand. We may have had that cart before the horse at one time where we had the general public speak on an item, then the board would discuss. So we're gonna give the public the opportunity to listen to the board first and then make your public comments, okay? Having said that, is there any member of the public that wishes to withdraw an item from the consent agenda? I see your hand, sir. Could you please speak loud?
16.
16? Any other item? Seeing none, I'll bring it to the board and staff. Is there any item that the staff or board wishes to be pulled from the consent agenda?
Chair, it's item 8,
Supervisor Mills, item 8.
item 9,
Item 9.
and item 11.
Item 11. Any other items from the regular, the consent agenda by the board or staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the balance of the consent agenda.
So moved, Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Mills,
Second.
second by Supervisor Clapp. Any public comment on that particular issue, pulling these items? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk.
Okay. Sorry, let me just get my bearings here for a second.
Well, that's okay.
Item 8. Okay. Item 8 is from the Sheriff's Department to authorize the sheriff to execute intergovernmental contract with Bureau of Reclamation, Department of Interior, in the amount of $154,420 for law enforcement services at New Maloney's Lake from June 1st, 2017 through May 31st, 2018.
Supervisor Mills, you pulled this item?
Yes, Chair, the purpose of pulling the item was to, and I know that the sheriff and his staff is not here, I did notice that the boat was not included in the cost allocation, but to ensure that this position is fully utilized for the purposes and that we are going to be able to put a deputy out there for the entire period of the contract. That was the only concern that I had, and I just wanted to voice that.
Okay. I believe, well, we do have a lieutenant. I don't want to put you on the spot, Lieutenant. That may not be your area of responsibility. Correct. But do you have any knowledge that we could share with that? I'm not prepared to talk. I understand, Lieutenant. All right, not a problem. I must comment on that. Having experience in that while I was on the Sheriff's Department, and I know that was a long time ago, but they make every effort possible to field that position under contract. As a matter of fact, if there is an incident where they pull that assigned deputy to cover, say, a patrol call, where it's a personal danger or something like that, that is actually documented on the contract and through the accounting. But I understand your concern about filling that position permanently per the contract, and I understand that they make every effort possible.
No, I do understand that, and it does say 40 hours per week. So the point is what 40 hours is just, it's going to be up to the Sheriff's Department to determine that. But I just want to be sure that we are going to be able to fully utilize the value of that contract. That's the only purpose.
Now, I do know that that's a permanently assigned deputy to that contract. Okay. Any further comments on that? Any comments, discussion by the board? Any comments by the public on this particular item?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman, regarding this is the boat patrol, correct?
No, this is the New Maloney's Reservoir Patrol.
Okay, so it's just driving around New Maloney's and it's not the boat patrol?
This is not the Marine Patrol. This
Okay.
is a separate contract with, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's with the Army Corps of Engineers, with the park people over there at New Maloney's. They actually work out of their facility.
Okay,
Marine Patrol is a different segment of the Sheriff's Office.
yeah, no, I understand that, and I didn't know whether you were talking about Marine Patrol or something else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Bill Wilson again, District 1. As far as the sheriff's concerned, we have $154,000 in that contract. That means that a deputy would be assigned there for 40 hours a week, correct? Wasn't there also a deputy hired to do inspections on the commercial cannabis ordinance? And the sheriff wasn't able to perform those duties. We had to go out and contract with the CHP because we don't have enough deputies that we pay a competent salary to. Aren't we going to have problems coming up with somebody? Didn't it take 24 months to get a deputy up to speed in this county through things? Seems like we might not be able to fulfill that. Correct, Mr. Mills?
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any further discussion before we call for a motion?
Yeah, the purpose of me saying no boat was exactly what you were talking about, that this is not the Marine Patrol.
Okay.
Just to be sure everybody
All
clearly
right.
understood that.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli,
And second.
second by Supervisor Mills. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk?
Item 9 is from the Sheriff's Office to execute an agreement with Teleosoft Incorporated for a new Sheriff Civil Administration System and Maintenance Agreement, and to approve capital allocations in the amount not to exceed $56,551. This action requires a 4/5 vote.
Supervisor Mills, you pull this item?
Chair, the purpose of pulling this item is to complement the Sheriff's Department on their financial statement as to how this is going to be financed, and I would like to see departments in the future use exactly this format. The idea of us simply seeing that there's no general fund money being used, so okay, everything's good, is not really a complete picture. This actually gives us the breakdown of where the revenue is going to be allocated from, the amount, the line item in the budget, as well as the expense allocation and the line item in the budget. And Maria just walked in the door, and I just want to compliment you on the breakdown that you provided for the approval on Telesoft and the financing. So when we see these budget items come through, and we can look at the actual line item and the revenue allocations and the line item and where you're going to expense it, that's exactly what we need to see. The idea of just having just a statement saying no general fund money's being used, so it's no harm, no foul, that doesn't make sense to me. I guess I've been a little bit spoiled because CCWD never did it that way. And so thank you for taking the time to put it in this kind of format. And again, I'd like to see that format continue through all of the departments as they present financial needs or financial allocations.
Oh,
So it's a compliment.
thank you, Supervisor, very much.
It's a good
I'm
thing.
not used to those. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any comment or discussion by the board or staff on this issue? Seeing none, a public comment on this issue? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk?
Item
Supervisor
11.
Mills, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Item 11 is from Public Works. Approve the professional services agreement between Calaveras County and Brad Sutton Trucking Incorporated for commercial truck hauling services to exercise the option for renewal of this agreement for year 4 of the annual not-to-exceed amount of $125,000 and a term ending June 30th, 2018.
Thank you. Supervisor Mills?
Yes, Chair, the reason for pulling this is to, again, look at that financing statement in that particular line item or agenda item, and where it does not give us the line item in the budget. It doesn't give us the revenue fund source that's being used. It says what it is. It's the road maintenance fund, the highway user tax account. But if we can actually look at those and be able to transpose those into the budget as it goes along, it would make our world a lot easier. Secondly, that when we're seeing contracts of this size, I trust that we are not doing no-bid contracts, that we are taking the time to go to an RFP to ensure that everybody who could potentially be involved can be and will be involved in the process.
Is there anyone here from Public Works to address this issue? I know Mr. Krobus is tied up on a previous engagement right now this morning.
Chair, we'll just leave it as comments for now.
Okay.
But I just want staff to understand that when you're looking at a $100,000 plus contract and it's not, there's no RFPs involved, that kind of gives me some thought that we need to have some type of a policy in place that we don't do no bid contracts on $100,000.
And I would tie into that as well. That's part of, as purchasing agent for the county, one of the areas that I've been working heavily to ensure consistency and streamlined processes. I agree, unless we have a valid reason to indicate that this is a sole source contract, or if there's, under disaster declarations, timeliness, although that's a very, very narrow window, that we would be going out to an RFP or going through a bid process and selecting the most responsive bidder.
Thank you, Mr. Lutz. And I don't know if this is a situation here. I do believe it might have something. But we do have blanket purchase orders for certain services for emergencies. I don't know if this falls into that category. We'll have to check with Mr. Krobus for that. Okay, and then this is basically comments at this time?
That's all it is.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion by the board or staff? Any public comment on this issue, on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk?
Item 16 is from the Administrative Office to authorize the Board Chair to sign a letter of opposition to Assembly Bill 1250, Jones-Sawyer.
This item was pulled by a member of the public, I believe Mr. Wilson. Is Mr. Wilson here? Mr. Wilson, you have the floor, sir.
Again, Mr. Wilson from District 1. My question is, what is the board's opposition to this? After reading this bill, it actually brings out things that you would have to actually hire competent people. If we have county staff, you couldn't go out and contract with somebody. If we have people to fill that position or can hire people to fill those positions to actually do the work in house, so to speak, rather than going out to contract. what is the board's opposition to that bill? Why do you not want controls over going out to an outside entity outside of the county? Thank you.
Thank you. This was authored by our Assistant CAO, Mr. Moss, who's unfortunately involved in other county issues.
It was actually authored at my request.
Okay, then Mr. Lutz, you get to answer that.
I am aware. Unfortunately, I think this represents, on the face of it, sounds like not a bad option. When you start to peel back the layers, what this really represents is I would characterize as a more typical California response to imposing additional layers of bureaucracy and cost on local government. Right now, as of this morning, already 40 counties have gone out in opposition to this, as well as over 100 coalition partners throughout the county for service providers. The significant concerns is that this could completely curtail or stop us being able to contract out services in key areas, and this runs the entire gamut. Health services would be impacted with some of our counseling programs, public health programs, pharmacy, mental health, behavioral health through our case management, community health facilities, human services on foster care, foster family services. When you look at public safety, that could include some of our code enforcement, our abatement services that we've been helping with using CHP for would be an example of where that would be something that under this contract would not be allowed, or we'd have to go through significant indicators that we couldn't do this and then have a significant reconciliation on the back end to demonstrate why we needed to contract out those services. It also goes into public works, potentially impacting how often we could go out for CEQA or EIR consultations when they're not in connection with the project development or permit processing. It could include debris removal, solid waste, recycling programs that we contract for, as well as transportation services. Transit would be another example where we contract for a service provider to operate our bus services. This would be at risk under this bill. Needless to say, just the huge gamut of services that this potentially has an impact for. That's why 40 counties have already signed up on this, and more are growing, I think, as board meetings like this occur and they get board approval to voice letters of opposition to this bill.
Thank you, CEO Lutz. That's pretty interesting, seeing 40 counties and there's only 58 in the state of California. Did that address an issue? I'm convinced that the board should support this, but did that, Mr. Wilson, did that address your issue, sir?
It explains some of it, sir.
Okay.
Part of that bill is to require you to make sure that the people we contract with for services are competent to perform those services. That's one of the big sticklers in that I would prefer to see. I mean, if you want to build a bridge and we have to go out for it, I'd like the bridge to get built. I wouldn't like it to go halfway through, kind of like the roads in Circle 20 where the contractor took off and half of the roads were done and half the roads weren't paved.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Further public comment? I'm sorry, I violated my own procedure. Is there any further board or staff comments before public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Segala.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. Thank you, Timothy. You've done a great job on this. And we concur that all communities, all counties and cities need the maximum flexibility in being able to contract out. And those that do, studies show there's direct savings in cost to the taxpayers. And as far as contracting with reputable contractors, that's almost a no-brainer. That needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fry.
George Fry again. This is a non-starter for me. It's once again the state reaching into our own local business. Who knows better than us? I have not seen any department that is not competent in putting bids out and getting competent people to complete projects. And I totally support the board sending a letter, and hopefully, you know, that's 40 counties, that's over 2/3, and that's the message right there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Clapp. I'm going to have you turn on your mic next time. It's okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk.
Item 21 is from the Administrative Office to receive a report from staff, Cal OES, and local organizations regarding the ongoing Butte fire recovery.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first item on our regular agenda, and seeing that we've been in session since 7:30 with our Madam Clerk, we'll be taking a 15-minute break and resume.
Thank you. Good time.
Welcome. Good time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I believe we're on item 21. Madam Clerk's already announced it.
And I was going to say, normally my assistant would also be here to introduce the topic, but I figured I'll just kick it off. Being the kind of fiscal year close for this, I also thought it would be helpful when Mr. Krovitz gets here to provide kind of a summary of where we're at on the projects to date. I'd suggest while we wait for Mr. Krovitz to start with the other presenters to provide their respective updates.
Okay, so seeing that, we may want to come back to this item. That's probably a wise thing to do, unless that's Mr. Krovitz. Let's table this until Mr. Krovitz arrives. Would that be better? Okay. Madam Clerk, we'll go to item number 22. Well, I'd like to have Mr. Krovitz give an update before we have any other speakers. He's on the way, I understand.
Item 22 is from the Treasurer Tax Collector to approve a resolution for discharge of accountability for certain delinquent unsecured tax bills incorporating unpaid personal property bills, mobile homes, and supplemental unsecured bills for fiscal years 2010, 2011 through 2012, 2013. The tax collector has requested that this item be tabled to our next meeting as there are some details she needed to address. So I would need a vote, a motion and a vote.
All right, we're going to postpone this to the next meeting, not table it. Table it, we'll have to hear it today. So we'll postpone it then. Is that correct, Council?
In parliamentary procedures, motion to set aside.
Set aside. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to set this item aside.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. Any board comment, discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, we are pulled on item number 22 at the request of the assessor. I have no problem with that. Do we need a vote on that, or we can just do it as a matter of procedure? Pulling this, item 22?
I'm sorry, I thought that was what the vote just was. Is
Oh, I'm
that
sorry,
not
that was a
correct?
vote.
Okay.
I'm still stuck on 21.
Okay, so moving along, item 23 is from the Sheriff's Office, accepting donations from the Friends of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office totaling $16,064.51 in recognition of their continued support of the County Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff DeBasilio, good morning.
Good morning, Board. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. I brought a bike for you guys to ride around, try them out. I didn't bring a helmet, though, so you have to be careful.
Sure.
I have Miss Candace Kesey here. She is the one of the founders and president of the Friends of the Sheriff's Office. She's got some things she'd like to say. I want to say thank you to her and her folks for allowing us to be able to purchase these things. For those of you that don't know, we did have the bike team out at the fairgrounds this year, riding around, and I'm part of that bike team still, although I bought my own bike, and it's a whole lot bigger than that one, so. Candace?
Do you have the training wheels off it yet, Sheriff?
No.
Okay,
No,
well,
not yet. And
let
I
me
wear
know.
elbow pads, knee pads, helmet, yeah, the whole 9 yards.
Good
I just
job.
wear a football uniform, it's easier.
Morning, Candace.
Good morning. How are you guys today?
Good.
Candace, like you said, founder, executive director for the nonprofit. We're a 501c3 public charity recognized by the IRS. For those of you that don't know, we were formed specifically to benefit the Sheriff's Office. Every dollar that we raise goes to there outside of very minimal operating costs. General liability insurance, directors and officers insurance, website, all the printing and the mailing and those kind of things, those are all donated to us. So our operating costs are probably less than $2,000 a year. And we raise roughly between $20,000 and $30,000 a year, and all the rest goes to the Sheriff's Office. I just wanted to take this opportunity while I'm up here, if it's okay to say a few things. Recently, one of our members, Deborah Bedard, passed away in a tragic accident. She was part of the Halverson Clark Invitational. What that is that's a weekend that these gentlemen that own second homes here, they plan a fun weekend for all their friends, and all the proceeds from the golf tournament and the barbecue, they donate to the Sheriff's Office. In the last 5 years, they've donated about $42,000 or $43,000 to us for the Sheriff's Office. So I just wanted to recognize Deborah, and I wanted to say how much she means to us, how much she meant to us, and thank you, and she will be missed. And along those lines, that's another avenue how we raise money is from golf tournaments. The Sequoia Woods Country Club men's and women's golf clubs in Arnold will be doing a golf tournament August 20th. That's up in your area, right, Mike?
That is correct.
And so if anybody's interested in that, they could visit our Facebook page or our website or give me or the sheriff a call. And all of those proceeds will go to the Sheriff's Office, the Bret Hart High School golf team, and the logging museum. I don't know the exact name of the logging museum up there. Yeah. Lastly, I don't know, I know I got an email from Megan saying that we couldn't discuss it, but I'd like to see if we could get on the agenda some way of the donation policy, us having to do this every year. Mr. Litz. Is it Letz? Mr. Letz. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of paperwork for the sheriff and the captain and for you guys and everything. I was just wondering if maybe we could agendize an item where we could up that threshold to the Sheriff's Office that we could donate every year. I think it's $500 you have the discretion
Is it
of.
10,000, or did we? I'm not looking at council too, because I know we actually have been researching this matter pretty extensively and thought that we actually had more discretion than we did,
Okay.
which I'm not certain if this item and accepting these donations is kind of a lingering remnant of wanting to be able to acknowledge that you guys provided the donation, so it's better to bring it to the board.
Right.
We certainly can review our donation policy across the board, and it's really a policy decision for the board on how much discretion they'd like the CAO to be able to accept without doing a board action or item to accept those funds.
Right, and I certainly understand if it was something that we were purchasing that would be, some long-term cost for the county afterwards. But usually it's something like this that you got, you know, and it's,
It's a donation.
yeah, it's a
By-
donation, and it's nothing that's
donation
gonna
shouldn't
cost
have
you
really
guys any money.
strings attached typically.
Yeah, no strings
Yes.
attached. So anyway, I was wondering if you guys would consider bringing that back to an agenda item. I've been talking about trying to get this done for a couple years now. So, I don't know if the sheriff, did you have any more to say about
I
it?
just wanted to show you guys the bike a little bit, kind of give you an idea of where we were at and where we're going with these things.
I'm going to take a quick second here. Candace, why don't you shoot an email to Supervisor Lutz, CC me, and we'll
CAO, let's,
CAO.
sure.
And I actually, she has already sent such an
Okay.
email, so
Yeah.
I'm
So
comfortable.
that
in-
process is in place.
Yeah,
And-
moving
Okay,
forward.
good.
And another quick comment, I don't mean to cut you off, Rick, but we funded to reinstate their K-9 program in 2012. So if it's something like that, that the county or the sheriff's office is going to incur those long-term insurance costs, we certainly understand having to go through the whole process. We're not asking to do anything under the table. Just when it's the easy stuff several times a year that the sheriff's office needs, it would just be, you know, it's just a lot of time, you know, for little things that, you know, is no long-term cost. I'm sorry,
Supervisor
Sheriff.
Mills?
Yes, there's, as the CO can tell you, there's been emails floating between him and I regarding that same issue, so it's something I will bring up at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sheriff, floor is all yours.
You know, I would, but I know I'd end up falling and making a complete idiot.
Okay.
These bikes were purchased, we tried to buy them locally. The local vendor that we have wasn't real willing to work with us, unfortunately. So we ended up purchasing these down in Modesto. We bought 6 of them. I bought one, like I said, for my own personal use. They have a bag that clips onto the back, so we can put our ticket books and our stickers and badges and stuff that we hand out to the kids. These bikes are really light. The bikes we used to have were probably about 40 pounds. These are probably about 25 pounds. So we outfitted them. Oh, this doesn't have a battery in it. It's got lights. It's got reds and blues. So pretty fancy. Yeah. It's got a siren on it too, but it's not plugged in. So it made it actually, we also have a little light that goes on the back, reds and blues also. They're a full suspension bike. The bikes themselves, I think, were about $1,900 plus all the other gear and stuff on them. They have hydraulic brakes on them instead of the old plant brakes, so they'll stop you. But again, thank you to
You're welcome.
to the Friends of the Sheriff's Office. These things are a huge asset. The benefit to the bikes is not just using them at fairgrounds or in the parades and stuff. We're actually putting together as a team to do some night patrols in downtown Valley Springs, which will help eliminate some of our people in the night sneaking around not being able to see. We found that on a bike, you can ride up to people, and first off, they don't expect to see a cop on a bike. So you can ride up to them, and they have no clue who you are until it's too late. We caught a lot of people doing really bad things on bikes. So a lot of benefits to having the bikes, other than just looking pretty and riding with you. Again.
Yeah, again, thank you to everybody watching in the audience, all the supporters, the donations we get. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of businesses near and far that send us money for the sheriff's office. So thank you, and thank you for trusting me to be a good steward of your money. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Candace. Good job.
Thank you.
Friends of the Sheriff.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can we stand over here and get a picture of you guys?
Yeah. By all means.
So when you make an arrest, you have to give someone a pump,
Stand in between, you guys, and just get your bike.
give them a pump on the back of the bike, put them on the handlebars.
But, bring it right in the middle here, yeah. There you go. Don't worry. I've been covered up before.
Gotcha.
Excellent.
So Candace, I hope the next gift is not spandex for the deputy.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to draw the line on
We
spandex.
got it. There's some gifts we can't accept.
I missed the shorts.
Poor sheriff.
I have your cell phone number to send.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll send it to you right now. Thank you.
Ladies
Thank
and
you very much.
gentlemen, is there any discussion by board, staff, Hearing none, any discussion by public comment?
Chairman and board members, George Fry. Candace is absolutely amazing what she's done in terms of Friends of the Sheriff. And the article, I hope you saw in the newspaper with all the new bikes and the officers that were with the bikes and what have you. Like I said, what Candace has put together with Friends of the Sheriff and the amounts of money that have been raised over several years now, I think we all should give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Mr. Segala, as you probably well noticed, folks, we kind of set aside our clapping policy today. But when we come back to the other issues, we'll come back to it. Mr. Segala, go ahead.
Okay. It's like Al Segala Taxpayer Association. We really, really appreciate work Candace has done. And it's kind of almost like a breath of fresh air. We have people that are voluntarily donating to help the Sheriff's Department, and she's just done wonders. We have a public access TV show, and she is our guest. There's a 30-minute program that you can find on YouTube by going to the public access TV website or the Calaveras Taxpayer Association and go to Taxpayer Alert, which is our show. And she's done an excellent job in that interview and gives a more in-depth background about where they're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Was that Marty? Marty. That was Marty. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bring it back. Do we need a vote on this? Oh, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to, well, Candace just walked out, but I just want to thank them as well. Whatever we figure out on the donation policy, I hope that they'll come back and accept our praise and gratitude for all that you do.
Well, thank you, Jack. Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you. County Council, is this a non-action item or is it an action item? Action item. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Clapp. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk, I believe Mr. Krobus has arrived.
So we will go back to item 21, Administrative Office. Receive a report from staff, Cal OES, and local organizations regarding the ongoing Butte Fire recovery.
Mr. Krobus? Busy day for you, right, sir?
It's getting there. Okay, so Butte Fire recovery programs in Public Works, the burn trees, hazard tree removal, all the trees are on the ground, and approximately 85% have been moved out to the debris treatment site and disposed of. We expect the completion of this entire current scope of the program to be completed by July 23rd. We have taken out 2,100 right-of-way trees. We've taken out 6,400 right-of-entry or private property trees adjacent to county roads. We've hauled over 70,000 cubic yards of debris, and we've disposed of through biomass or generation of electricity with the waste material of over 30,000. I believe that the grinding operations out in Wallace will commence either today or tomorrow. I saw a text, I've already forgotten what it said last night. We expect that to be done, and then that yard return to no work starting at the third week of July. There is still pending work on this program. We have approximately 500 trees along county right-of-way that have died, that the arborists thought had a chance to live. We believe those are still in the program, and we are discussing this option with Cal OES and FEMA. There's an additional 1,000 or so trees on parcels that we have already removed trees from that have subsequently died that we did not take, but we also believe those are in the program. So I'm calling that phase 2 work. No time or date yet. There are more discussions that need to happen amongst board, staff, and then funding agencies. In terms of the roads, we are reconciling our invoicing for the work that initially happened during emergency opening operations through Auditor Controller's Office and with our funding agencies. And we have done a limited amount of permanent repairs on fire damaged roads in areas of higher concern. In terms of the 2 grants, the mitigation grants that we have, FEMA is currently in the NEPA process. They've come out this spring on a number of occasions into the field that Public Works assisted with, getting right of entries for and getting access to. They're in the process of preparing their environmental document. Once the environmental document is prepared, then we can move ahead with that, that program, which is erosion and sediment control work. While not on the subject matter, it's still appropriate to talk about. Public Works has completed a number of permanent repairs related to the storm damage of 2017, and we are continuing to add projects to the list of projects for 2017 storm damage, more specifically in 2 of the CSAs where damage was taken. Okay. Questions?
Questions of Mr. Cruz. Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and morning, Jeff. We've discussed, you and I have discussed since the beginning of January, the need to bring on a project management consultant for the road repairs that have to happen up country in the Butte Fire Zone. That's been, you stood here before and said, soon, or 6 months deep into soon. When are we going to have this person on, this company on board? When will we issue the RFP for it? And my follow-up question is going to be, we have a deadline looming in September where we have to start work on this. So I'd like to know what our plan is to it. So first, the project management consultant to design, put this work together. And second, when are we going to start? And I want to hear that we're going to make it by the deadline.
Wow. Yeah. Good questions. I know that I've been before you before, say that the project management consultant contract is pending, and it is drafted, but not ready to go. We constantly turn off of it on what appear to be higher priority activities that we're supposed to be doing. I don't know, without actually sitting down and talking to staff, when I'm going to have that on the street and when I can award it. I'd like to think that I can do it before September, but I cannot count on that. Therefore, I am preparing requests and justifications for extension of the program. At the same time, we are identifying permanent work to do and document such that we have met the initial deadline and we're not penalized, because we still have 2 years to complete the work. So as long as we have documentation of permanent work being done, then I believe that we can extend the deadline. So that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but that's the best I can do right now.
No, it's not the answer I wanted to hear. We cannot, this is an enormous amount of money that's available to us to do a repair that we're only going to get to do one time in multiple generations. We have to get this. We are therefore betting on the largesse of FEMA to say, okay, but we have to move getting this project going to as a priority. You and I have discussed this many times. and we cannot miss this deadline. If I have to get out there with a shovel and start work, we will do it, but we can't lose this opportunity.
Understood. And we have started the work.
Right, I've seen some of the work. I know you've been working up on Jesus Marie and other things, just keeping those things passable. But we have to do that. The third question I've got is, you and I discussed prior the possibility of putting in place a dig once policy. So when we're doing this work, we can make improvements to the community as well. Instead of just putting in a surface, maybe finding ways for utilities to run high-speed internet and other items, even water possibly, along the side, through the middle, some way to make sure that we do this correctly the first time. Has there been any progress in working with planning and coming up with a new ordinance or making this part of our FEMA proposal?
I've spoken with FEMA and Cal OES about making it part of the proposal, and they've said the same things that you and I discussed about the difficulty of incorporating environmental clearance for dig once into disaster-related reconstruction activities, and how that would be potentially detrimental to our recovery from the disaster. So that end is nearly a strikeout without a change to, I'm assuming, federal legislation or Stafford Act legislation that allows that. There is some flexibility if you are doing work that's considered hazard mitigation for future hazards, but the leap onto sewer, water, communications is also a difficult case to make. The ordinance can be done in terms of a 1 to 3 year moratorium from a post paving to where trenching is allowed, so that you're not digging up new pavement. But as you know, we haven't done truly new pavement out there for a number of decades. What we do is a series of patches. So does one tell a utility company that's coming in to put in a cable or internet or communications, you can't go through the road because we don't want you to dig through our series of patches?
Let's see if working with FEMA and creative engineers, we could figure out a way to make this work. Some of our roads prior to the Butte fire, and I know FEMA requires that we bring it back to the standards that it was before the fire, we're not to any county safety standard. We would never build a road like some that exist up there today. Have we resolved the issue about we don't want to rebuild a road and not have it meet our minimum standards? Have FEMA taken that on?
FEMA has reiterated again and again that their responsibility is to bring your public infrastructure back to where it was the day before the fire. And so if our public infrastructure was, a decade or two of patch paving, then that's what we get to bring it back to. Any improvement on there or any betterment over and above that, which would an overlay or the types of standards that you're talking about, either for width or for structural section pavement, would be a betterment in their mind.
I mean, we would never ask a private citizen to build a road that wasn't to our code or make an improvement that wasn't to our code. How can we as a county be expected to do less?
Supervisor Garamendi, difficult, and I don't want to sound like a negative department head here, but the funding is not available for those benefits.
I understand that, but it would seem like that would be a very good argument to make to FEMA to make sure we do this correctly. Is to, we expect our citizens to build to our code, and we're talking about building roads that aren't to our own code or the state code. We need to make this argument. I would hope that perhaps at the next month's meeting, you could report out on that we've got a contract on the street for a project management consultant and have this verified that we're going to make this deadline, because we have to. And we've been patient.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Supervisor Mills?
Thank you. I think that, Jeff, this speaks to the larger issue, and I know you and I have spoken to it before, and I want to compliment our new CAO on the decision to bring this recovery effort from OES into the admin office, because what we've done is that Public Works has a budget, and they have a fixed amount of work that they need to do. It's on their project list. These are things that they've committed to get done. And then the Butte Fire came along, and rather than getting that work out there to somewhere else or finding the manpower and the time to do it, we just layered it on top of the Public Works Department. And then we added the Butte Fire tree mortality, we added the storm damage, so all of a sudden you have 4 separate Stafford Act declarations, Mr. Krovitz, that you're dealing with, which are actually on top of your basic budget, for which you have a staff and a commitment of projects to do. So I say, you know, we can start to work around this, and it should have been worked around a lot sooner, to get the OES component, the recovery component under the ICS system, into operation separately from what you have to do as your basic budget. And that's where I think the rub is that it creates an overwhelming condition of what is the priorities and which one is more important. So your staff and you have developed a tremendous amount of time and effort in trying to deal with what I call these sudden priorities that really should have been handled through the OES recovery process. And I think it's an untenable situation. And to your point, I think that having an administrator is a beginning step, Supervisor Garamendi, to pulling this together into something larger than what the Public Works Department is capable of handling under their current budget. And that's where the problem is, as I see it. And I'm just giving you my opinion, that until we fix that structural element, this will continue to be just overlapping problem on a problem, and which ones are more important, it just depends on what noise is being made the most at the moment. So I get that. So let's see if we can work from our side and from our CAO side to get this pulled together and get you back to operating in the budget that you were intended to operate on at the beginning of the year, and doing those things that you committed to at the beginning of the year, and get the rest of this, in essence, off your plate. Just my point.
It'd be nice.
Further comments? Mr. Krovitz, I'm aware of the job you're doing and your staff with the tools you have. And I think you're doing an outstanding job. These are very important issues raised by my fellow supervisors, and I'm sure we're going to find a solution, but it's not going to be tomorrow. He's right. Supervisor Mills is right. How can we ask you to do something that you don't have the tools to do or the financing? But then again, I understand the need to get these things addressed. Supervisor Tofinelli?
Mr. Krovitz, if I understand you correctly to what you're explaining, what FEMA expects or is going to pay for, you're expected to reconstruct roads with cold patch, because that's what we do. We use primarily when we go out and patch the roads that we have. So they're expecting you to go out and reconstruct the roads that need reconstruction without any new pavement, because there was no new pavement there, and just primarily with cold patch? Or are we just talking about the width of the road? Because I'm trying to vision, because I know a lot of these roads are completely destroyed and they need major work done on them, and to get them back to what you were explaining, I just can't vision FEMA paying the money for something like that when they should expect what we're replacing is going to be cohesive enough to last.
They're asking for, or they're funding in-kind replacement. And their opinion that we go in and patch trench failures or pothole failures and then come back with an overlay is that you can do the overlay if you want to, but we're not going to fund it. It's a betterment. You have a road that's the width it was September 8th of 2015. If you want to widen it, great, widen it, but that is a cost that is to be borne by the county. So it is, I guess, a form of insurance that says the limit of the liability for grant funding is in-kind replacement. And regardless of how much sense it makes, The only caveat to that is if additional damage has been done to our roads on the public assistance side as a result of recovery operations, then there's a portion of that that may be funded as well. But that has been disallowed on the federal aid eligible roads by Caltrans through federal highways. Different standards on different roads that we're working to.
Thank you.
Maybe SB 1 will help us.
There's very little money in there.
Chair, that brings up another point, because if you remember during the FEMA training, Jeff, they had talked about as if we have policies in place that FEMA will defer to our policies. Do we have certain policies on minimum road widths or minimum road construction processes that we could say to them, we'll defer to our policies? And I'd like to add something to that, and that is the majority of the area you're talking about is identified as disadvantaged community areas. And I know you're very good at creating narratives. Would it be helpful for this board to provide some kind of a letter of support or some kind of discussion of support to help you with your cause and your statements before FEMA?
I have no idea.
I'm just shooting arrows out there thinking, how can we get them to understand that we don't have the capacity, we don't have the ability, but we do have policies. And if these policies say that the minimum road shall be and constructed this way, and they've already told us in the training that that's what they would go back to, why don't we hold them to that or try?
We do have standards for level of service roads.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
But by the same token, those standards are not always applicable to existing conditions. They're applicable to change of land use or new construction. And yes, we did provide.
And I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, we would not reconstruct the road without using those standards. If there was a development, I understand what you're saying, if there was a development going at the end of the road, then they would be required, if it's a level D and whatever, to reconstruct the road to match the level of service.
And quite possibly do off-site improvements to bring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Agreed.
I mean, if we construct a road that's unsafe, just because, I mean, and don't we have a certain amount of liability? I know you have a meeting, I understand there's a meeting set up down in Sacramento with FEMA and Mr. Lutz, is that correct? You guys have something scheduled?
We have actually, I had just sent a note to you to discuss the fact that we needed to finalize what that narrative needs to be to FEMA. I'm meeting with Cal OES next week to have the discussion, because the first step is the Cal OES sign off that they would also support it. That's the meeting that I'm having. And then really the next step is getting FEMA on board, or at least developing our narrative for FEMA and having that meeting. I would recommend a face-to-face rather than a letter. And the premise there too is going as high as you can go within FEMA, and you can get a meeting with, because you want somebody who can actually make decisions and commitments.
Well, if you need help, I'm available.
Yeah, and I think we will need the board's help in this one, specifically for that purpose.
Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, is there any presenters on this particular agenda item? Thank you, Mr. Krovitz.
Good morning. Mel Knight, Butte Wildfire Recovery Community Liaison. Going to update you today on the debris removal program project progress. In fact, we've got quite a bit of progress to report this time. I'm going to start out, though, by paraphrasing our president on who would have thought insurance was so complicated. So I think that's been recently stated, and it certainly applies here. We're now at a phase where we're doing the insurance invoicing, and unfortunately, we've just recently received the information from the state, CalRecycle, that will allow us to have the parcel cost that will enable the insurance invoicing to move forward in the next few weeks. That's a major milestone, and really looking forward to that. We've also documented contact with now 100% of those property owners that indicated they had homeowners insurance that may provide a duplication of benefit that we'll be addressing. In fact, I think as the last report I gave you, I think we had 3 remaining contacts to make, and now we've actually contacted all, and that was by doing either phone, email, or letter that was received by each of the 564 properties that indicated that they had some potential homeowners insurance coverage. To date, we've received nearly $900,000 in pre-invoicing insurance proceeds. Many people have advanced their proceeds before invoicing simply because it was part of their settlement or for other reasons that they didn't want to hold on to the proceeds. We will be planning to initiate invoicing in the next 2 weeks. We have circulated some drafts that are being reviewed to make sure that this is being done in a manner, in a way that indicates the county is here to assist. We're coordinating our efforts, by the way, this is a new initiative, coordinating efforts with the tree removal ROE program, because many of the same residents are involved in both programs. So we're going to try to make sure that that's coordinated in a way that's both saves some time, money, and contact activities. We've had a lot of interaction, and I do want to, before I go into some of the details, make sure I am providing thanks to the Public Information Officer, County Administration. By the way, County Administrator is getting a lot of praise today. This is and well-deserved. County Council, Auditor Controller, Environmental Management Agency, and Tetra Tech is a contractor. I don't know if I'm leaving folks out. Supervisor Garamendi has been very helpful on both reviewing documents, and we've been trying to make sure that your board has been informed throughout the process. I want to reiterate a little bit here, recap on just what will be happening in the next few weeks and why. Calaveras County did receive approximately $100 million in debris removal activity from the state and federal agencies. The Stafford Act law actually requires that where there were other funding sources available, that those be utilized. Therefore, those that had homeowners insurance that had debris-specific coverage were obligated, and they signed off documentation from their right of entry document that they would turn that over to the state and federal government per the federal requirements. The agreement said that the county would be the agency that would actually administer this invoicing, and I'm going to put emphasis on the word invoicing. The county does not keep the proceeds. The county simply has the obligation to make contact with the property owners, advise them of what the cost and liability is, and then provide an invoice. We've actually, as I said, pre-invoicing, we've received nearly $1 million. We expected by the end of the process to have received as much as $4 or $5 million, which will eventually be turned over to the state. Again, that would represent approximately 4 to 5% of the actual federal and state outlay. The requirement on duplication of benefit is very, very specific. That what it indicates that the liability does not exceed what your insurance proceeds would be. For instance, if you have no homeowners insurance, and nearly half of the property owners had no homeowners insurance, they have zero liability. If you are a property owner who had $20,000 in coverage, but the state costs were $100,000, and those, by the way, are fairly typical averages, you would find that your liability is capped at the $20,000 that you would receive from your insurance company. It would not exceed that amount. To date, we've been able to get approximately a third of the property owners with insurance. We've been able to get enough information from them to be able to determine an amount that we believe is their liability. That leaves about another 2/3 that we do not have the exact amount. And it's for a number of reasons. Either they don't understand the policy amount, they are unable or unwilling to share the documents, or their attorneys have advised them that they should not share this information, or they've shared the information with us that relates to the insurance company, but they will not turn that information over to us. They'll only turn it over to their clients, all of which we respect and will deal with. But for the instance of those folks, they will actually be receiving a document that shows the full amount of the state cost on the invoice. It will state, this is not your liability, but this is the amount of state cost, and your obligation is limited to any duplication of benefit through your insurance proceeds. They will be obligated to then provide that number themselves because we don't have a basis for calculating this. Whatever they turn back to us is what we will forward to the state. We will not be involved in collection or enforcement activities as it relates. I think it was a good idea that the county be the contact agent because you are in greater touch with the local community. I think it's perfectly appropriate, though, that any follow-up would be done by the state and federal agencies that have the statutory authority as well as will be the recipient of those dollars. So again, when our invoicing goes out, we will take whatever it is we are to receive and forward that to the state and federal folks for their attention and whatever action they may proceed with following that date. We will remain available through the end of the process to assist. The county's role isn't a collection role, but it's one of assistance to make sure this is done in a respectful way for the folks that had to suffer through this tragedy, and that we're trying to provide whatever assistance we can. And I think we've been fairly successful. Tetra Tech has been, in my opinion, as I've watched them through their history of working on Sandy, Katrina, and other, they've been very, very good at how to deal with folks in this situation. So hopefully this will move forward. As I started out, this is much more complicated. That is a public health professional in my background, anything I've dealt with of this nature, but it's been a real education. And with that, I think that I'll take any questions or any clarification I might provide.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Mel. You're pretty close to the end of your contract. Closing up on it. I think when you came on board and we first met, you figured it was going to be a couple weeks.
Yeah.
2 years later, glad to see you're still here. Some kind of retirement. But I really do appreciate the work that you've done on this. You did a lot of work initially on me because I was rather resistant to this program, but I think you managed it very well, and I want to thank you very much. And really make sure that everybody understands that we had an obligation to do this to the state. We have met the letter of our obligation. We're close to meeting it.
We will have met, yes.
We will have met the letter of our obligation, but we are not going to become the collection agency and start knocking on people's doors and throwing liens at people. We've done our duty. We've collected the money from the state as we agreed to do, and step away from the table.
Yeah, we've certainly made a good faith effort. As I said, we made all the three-way contact, or at least three routes of contact. The very last one, by the way, I'll share this because it reminded me of the ROE tracking. The very last one was done where I actually found a relative on LinkedIn, showed where that relative worked, which gave me an idea where she lived, and then by going through other internet searches was able to get a phone number for a person, and the Tetra Tech contractor was able to contact her, which put her in touch with her father, who was the person who had moved from Mountain Ranch to Galt, California. So it was one
You've got a great way about dealing with people, and thank you.
Further questions of Mr. Knight? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Further presenter on this item issue? Ms. Davis?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Leslie Davis, County Assessor. For your board, this is my only report on Butte Fire. The previous board had a number, both in writing and in person, but at this point, I think we are 99.9% done with our efforts, and so I can give you the basics. There were 2,579 assessor parcels affected by the Butte Fire. We reduced the value on 2,065 of those parcels. Each reduction required 2 roll corrections for the 2015 year, the year in which that fire occurred, and because of the timing of us getting all of that work done, required another roll correction for the 2016 roll. I believe that all notices have been mailed to all owners who were getting a reduction, and that work should have been finished by mid-May. By the end of May, I had certified the total reduction to the Department of Finance, as was required, as you know, by Assembly Bill 2314 that Assemblymember Bigelow and State Senator Barry Hill co-sponsored. Any owner who has not received a reduction and they think they should have received a reduction, this is for those who are watching out there on the internet, please contact my office so that we can see what has happened in that case. The total reduction in value, and this is assessed value, not market value, was $57,751,273. Please know that that was not for 1 year, that was only for 84% of fiscal year 15-16, and if that value was also a reduction for 2016, then it would have been for the full year of 2016. We had 12 requests to transfer base year values so that by way of explanation, property owners who experienced a loss in the fire area who then purchased another property could ask to have their value transferred to the new property. That particular request requires 3 separate appraisals of both the original property before and after the fire and the replacement property. So we've had 12 of those. 7 of those have been enrolled. 3 we determined were not beneficial to the property owner, so we did not transfer the base year value. They were better off with their new value. We have 2 additional requests that we continue to work on because of minor complications along the way. Again, my hat's off to my staff. They gave almost complete attention to this in the few months immediately following the fire, working overtime and that type of effort. It took them approximately 20 months to get through that. And so when I talk to you about our backlogs and our staffing, this is part and parcel of that. But now we are refocused. As I walked out of the office to come over here, the roll reset was finished. We are done with the 2017 roll except for the 4,000 or so that we have yet to do. Any questions about the numbers? I know they're very boring and they're big and a little intimidating.
Very
Great.
informative.
Leslie,
Thank you, Mr.
Leslie, can you email those?
I gotcha.
Gotcha. Can you email those figures to me?
Yeah, I believe I can.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Good morning, Ms. Torrance.
Good morning. Sharon Torrance, Butte Fire Recovery Public Information Office. This past month or so, I've continued to attend the weekly meetings from or by Public Works, and that's where I've obtained the information to write press releases that have gone out to all the media, gone on our Facebook and also on the county webpage. I've received calls from the media asking for radio interviews. We also entertained Channel 13, and they did a tour and were able to get some good video and produced an update on what's going on in Calaveras County on Butte Fire Recovery, on the tree removal, and it gave them a better understanding of why it's taken so long to get to the point we are today, which is 100% of all dead, burnt dead hazard trees are on the ground. I also was able to go out on a tour of the area myself with Phillips and Jordan's lead person, Will Gadeen, and it's been an education for me also, and has, I think, enhanced my ability to communicate to the public and the media as to what's been going on here and why recovery has taken up to 2 years, and I think we'll be going through that for quite a long time. I've still had a lot of response from our Facebook page. I've been posting the weekly schedules for Phillips and Jordan's cruise. I've also been working with Mel Knight on his piece of the insurance recovery. I wanted to share with you a story about an older lady, older than me, who had been calling all of us. I don't know how many of the supervisors were called. I have received many phone calls from her regarding payment that she made for debris removal. And we finally, with Mel's help, we finally were able to figure out, she, I believe, had a bit of dementia going on, lived by herself in the San Jose area, and owned property here. And we thought she just wasn't understanding what we were saying and had a misconception of who cleaned her property. And finally got to the bottom of it, got a hold of her daughter and an attorney for her, and were able to straighten all that out. It took a while, but with Mel's great work in finding out people's names and where they live, I think we all ought to beware of Mel. But he was able to get that information, and we were able to help her. So I'm still receiving calls from the public, and thus far I've been able to get them to the right person if I can't answer the question myself. So any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torrance. Further presenter on behalf of staff of the county? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion. This is an informational report requiring no action. Madam Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. I'm sorry about that, folks. My notes. Any public comment on this issue?
Cliff Edson, District 1. I'm sitting here listening to this barrage of stuff coming at Public Works, and I guess people think that by now that I'm like a defender of Public Works or something. But I got to tell you that during the fire, as all the departments did in the county, Public Works had in my opinion, after the sheriff was finished with recovery, had the biggest job and the least amount of support. They were, Mr. Krovitz was hollering for support about the first week into the disaster, and he was not getting it, and he didn't get it. He got one person, and then he got Tetra Tech. That's what he got. And so his department received layers and layers and layers of extra work on an already under-budgeted group. If you take a look at the history of the budget in Public Works over the past 8 years, you'll see that they have been pretty much gutted as far as funding goes. So I think that the other thing is if you're going to go after anybody for fixing roads and try to get FEMA to do that, or OES, FEMA's not going to do anything that they don't have pictures of, and they aren't going to replace anything that hasn't been that is different than what was there before. They make that very clear. So how do you do that? It makes it very difficult, huh? Well, I think it's by design. They get to do less that way. They get the better their budget. And little counties like us who can't afford to fill in the gaps end up fighting and fighting and fighting until finally we settle for much less. So I think that the Public Works Department deserves praise. They took on a huge task, and I think they've done wonderfully well for our county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further public comment? Seeing or hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any further comments by the board or staff? Supervisor Mills?
Well, I think to Supervisor Garamendi's point, there is going to be some timelines that are going to have to be met, whether we like it or not. Whether we're able to pull this all together quickly enough will be something that hopefully the CAO will figure out very quickly. So it's going to just take a constant effort on our part to keep this in the forefront and be sure that we can get the conclusion we're looking for.
Thank you, sir. Further comment? Madam Clerk.
Item 24 is from the Sheriff's Department to adopt a resolution to relocate the county-owned badge of Sheriff Benjamin Kent Thorne from the County Treasurer's Office to the County Sheriff's Office.
Sergeant Strom, welcome.
Chris Villegas, I'm a sergeant with the Sheriff's Office.
I'm
also
sorry,
the
Sergeant
department.
Villegas.
It's all right.
I'm going to pay for that
I've
one.
been called worse. It's okay. I'm also the department historian, so I'm in charge of the memorabilia and artifacts that contained within the Sheriff's Office. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you guys might have on this topic.
Any questions of Sergeant Villegas regarding the badge issue? Supervisor Mills was first, and you get to be second. Oh, Supervisor Clapp, he
I guess
conceded.
the elders win out this time,
Okay.
so you kids keep in line.
Okay, could I have you speak into the microphone, sir? Thank you.
I would want to know what you're going to do with the badge, how you can secure the badge, and if there was an appraisal on the badge done to the value of it.
There has not been an appraisal done at this point yet. That could be something that we can do in the future. It is going to be, hopefully, if the board approves it, be taken to the Sheriff's Office. It will be stored in a secure area within the Sheriff's Office that will be viewable to the department employees and to public that comes in and is checked in and escorted through the building. So it is available for that as well. But it is in a secure area. It's in an area that is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by sworn law enforcement personnel. So it is in a safe area.
I'm sorry, could you please raise the mic so that we can hear you?
Trying not to yell at you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mills. I'm sorry, Supervisor Clapp, you finished?
That was exactly my concern as well, is that what type of security would be in place for it. To have it in a secured area by itself might be insufficient, whether it would be behind protective glass or whether it would have an alarm system attached to it. As you know right now, we don't know what the value is.
Correct.
So my concern would be whether we would do this and then suffer a loss because we're not paying attention, and it's happened before, as you know, with other things. So I just want to be assured that we have sufficient security surrounding the actual badge itself. Whether it's viewable or not is not the issue. The issue is, can we secure it from anybody tampering with that location without everybody knowing about it?
Right. No, I understand. It is in an area within the Sheriff's Office, like I said, that is controlled. It takes specific key card access to get into that area, and it will be displayed with other items, other sheriff badges. Sheriff James, his badge is in there. Also, Sheriff Zwing, his badge is also in there, along with quite a few other artifacts that have been obtained and shared with the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. I want to make sure that this reminds me of like my wedding china. You're so worried about breaking it that you lock it away and you never get a chance to use it. If you, as you go through this, if there are ways that we can make sure that the public has access to this piece of our history, to see it and learn and enjoy it like everybody else, it always breaks my heart to think of great art or great history locked away.
Correct.
I know there's a balance, but you know, the country will not collapse if the worst thing happened, but we do want to make sure that everybody gets to enjoy the county, the history, the great history of this county, and I'm sure that's a concern of yours as well as a historian. So,
Sure.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe it's not possible, but whenever possible, bring the community in on your great history.
Sure, and there is video surveillance of this area as well, so that also helps out. And some of the losses that have happened throughout the years with other items of this nature in other counties have been in more of a public access area that's has times when it's closed, nobody around, lobbies and that sort of thing. So this is kind of somewhat of a happy medium to where it can be monitored 24 hours a day and still is somewhat accessible to public.
I'm sure most of the public is like me. I was kind of hoping you were bringing it today.
Yeah, no, I didn't have it with me, so sorry.
Sergeant, I have a comment. Are you done, Supervisor Clapp? Okay. Supervisor Tofinelli, I'm going to let you go first.
I just have one question. When you indicated that you need a card to get in to the access the area where it's going to be stored at, when you swipe the card, is there information kept as the time the card was swiped through, whose card it was?
Absolutely.
So if something happens, you can go back and see the last person, or the time and you know whose card it was?
Absolutely. Every one of our access doors are recorded that way.
And it has video cameras.
Correct.
Is this in the area right outside your office where the other badges are? No.
Go ahead.
This is in the Commons area. If you come in the back of the sheriff's, if you come to the front of the sheriff's office, you have to go through two sets of, or actually three key-padded doors to get into it. It's in that Commons area where we've had some luncheons and whatnot before. That's where the staff personnel have their lunches and whatnot. It's behind a glass case. Again, there's video cameras throughout the area. People have to pass code to get in and out. If there are any visitors, if you come in, you're checked in with me and you receive a pass, so you're not free to walk around in the department without it because it's still a secured area. So I won't say there's no way somebody could break the glass and get it, but we would know who it was because we would know who came in there and we would have video surveillance of them taking the badge.
So it's not shatterproof glass?
It's not shatterproof glass, no. And if they were in camouflage or they were in some type of a disguise, we'd be on before they even got in there. Because it's inside the secured area.
Thank you.
Sheriff, I have a couple of questions for both of you. Do you have an armory in the sheriff's department?
Yes.
What do you keep in there?
Guns, bullets, bean bags, tasers.
Do you have evidence in the sheriff's department?
Yes, sir, we do.
Do you have money in the sheriff's department?
Yes, sir, we do. Not
Do you
mine,
have
though.
narcotics and contraband in the sheriff's department?
Yes.
And every sworn officer has a sidearm, correct?
Yes.
And to get into the sheriff's department, you have to go to the front lobby if you're coming in the front door. You contact a bulletproof reception area.
Correct.
And access to any part of the sheriff's department other than the meeting room on that first lobby floor and the restrooms is by card access. You have to be buzzed in if you don't have a card.
Correct. Bless you.
Then you have to go back through two more doors?
Yes.
Or one more door to get to the area where the display is?
Two more doors.
Two more doors. I think you got a secure area.
It is a pretty secure area, again, and not all of our staff have access to that area. Some of the areas, like the evidence room, the armory, some people don't have access to those areas. Not everybody is allowed to go into some of those areas.
So it's a a dedicated access program.
Yes,
And that's fully loggable, and we have
Absolutely.
video and card access records to indicate that?
absolutely.
Because I can't even get past the front door.
Right. We don't want any board of
Somebody buzzing
supervisors
me
in
in
there.
and having an escort.
Yes.
So, in my opinion, I think you have a secure location.
I would sure hope so. That was the way it was designed. And we also have an emergency plan, so if there was something to happen, everybody knows where and what to do and where to go.
Is there any further questions of the sheriff or the sergeant?
Yeah, I'm just not sure I'm willing to agree to this until we get a chance to see it.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a caveat is if you agree to it, I'll let you come see it. Otherwise, you got to talk to the tax collector.
Do I get to touch it?
You have to develop a tactical plan
I don't know
for that
about that.
viewing. So, Supervisor Clapp.
Yeah, I would have one request, and it might not be the sheriff, but if there's ever an appraisal done on the badge, I'd like that appraisal to be given to the people that donated the badge for possible tax purposes.
Sergeant, how did we acquire this badge?
The badge was actually willed back to the sheriff's office, or I'm sorry, back to the county. A lady in Murphy's, I believe, had passed away and willed the badge and some other items from her estate, and that's came to the county, and it's been held there ever since. So, as far as we know, there's no other relatives.
Okay. Do you have a method or procedure or funds to appraise items that's been historical value to the county or the sheriff's department?
I'm not sure exactly how that would come about, but I know that we can get that done.
Okay.
If need be.
That's your question, sir?
Yeah, it was just a,
Supervisor Garamendi, your light's on, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. All right. Is there any other further questions by staff or the board of the sheriff or the sergeant? Seeing none, I'll open this up for public comment. Ms. Crane.
So I'm listening to the people around me, and we all get that this is an important historical thing. We'd like it to be viewed by the public. Doesn't sound like the public's going to get to see it unless there's some way to have it on camera and on some type of a screen in the lobby where they can see it. I don't know. But could you just tell everybody, why is this badge so important? What significance does it have? I mean, who was this person, so they know what we're talking about?
Before
Just so
we
we
do
know what
that-
we're talking about.
Yeah, before we do that, Ms. Crane, I don't think we ought to discuss the actual makeup of the badge, if you will.
No, I'm just, no,
Okay.
why are we all so
But we
excited
can
about
have
it?
the sergeant address that
Yeah, thank you.
on public TV.
That's a good question. Ben Thorne was the 7th sheriff here in Calaveras County. He was also the longest-term sheriff. He was sheriff from 1867 until after the turn of the century, about 1902. He was accredited for many major arrests, major cases. Some of those came from Joaquin Murrieta, which was prior to him being sheriff. He was also a deputy back in 1855 and a constable in 1855 here in Calaveras County. So his law enforcement term here within the county was quite extensive. And also Sam Brown, the famous murderer here from Calaveras County, and of course our famous stagecoach robber, Black Bart. So he was one of the most famous and well-known sheriffs in history during that time, and a very feared, very respected person. As you all know, the Thorne Mansion is still standing here in San Andres as well. So he's a major part of our history in this county. So that's.
I didn't hear that. Okay, is there any other further comment? Seeing none or hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Garamendi. Second? I'll second. Unless you want a second.
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk.
Item 25 is from the Board of Supervisors to appoint the appointment of applicants to serve on various committees, commissions, advisory boards, and county service areas. Today, what you have before you are 4 appointments. Generally, they are acted upon all in one vote. The first one is for the Fish and Game Commission. It is a midterm vacancy for District 5 representative. We have 2 applications, one from Albert Alt and one from Charles Ferrucci. The second is for the Children's and Families Commission, first 5. It is for a District 1 representative, and an application was received from Crystal Goldberg. The third is for the Calaveras Child Care Council. An application was received from Sheila Neal. And the last is for the Hardwood Advisory Board, and it is for a representative of the Cattlemen's Association, and an application was received from Nick Musacha. So we need a nomination from District 5 between the 2 applications.
I'd like to have Albert.
Is that a nomination, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Any other nominations?
It would
Are we
just
going to vote on everything all at once?
You would vote on everything all at once. There are no other nominations to be made unless one of the applications is polled and acted upon at a different day.
We'll take a moment to review application information. I see no derogatory information that would convince me not to accept any further applications. Any further comments by the board? Seeing none, any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll come back to the board. Entertain a motion.
So moved, Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Mills,
I'll second it.
second by Supervisor Clapp. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, seeing none, motion carries 5-0 unanimous. Madam Clerk.
Item 26 is from the Building Department to authorize the CAO to execute an agreement with Superion to develop and implement a new electronic permit tracking system in the amount not to exceed $494,610, not to exceed 60 months from date of execution.
Good morning, Chair Oliveira and the board. This is Ed Short with the Chief Building Official for the Building Department. I'm respectfully requesting to withdraw this to get further detailed specific contract language that would be in the best interest of the county. So it will be coming back in the near future. We're working with the vendor to make sure that we get a solid contract. So,
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And when you bring it back, could you bring it back with the account numbers?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Supervisor Clapp, did you have I'm sorry, your mic's on. Okay, thank you. Any other Supervisor Tofinelli, I got you. Any comments on this issue? Seeing none, do we need a motion?
We do not.
Okay, then your grant to withdraw is on your own. Your request to withdraw is granted.
Right. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Item 27 is from Public Works to authorize the CAO to, back up. Authorize the purchase of a temporary bridge to be used to reopen Blagan Road, Main Street in White Pines, crossing over Big Trees Creek from Acro Bridge for a not to exceed amount of $89,000.
Mr. Crovus.
Thank you. Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. This item has been in front of the board on a number of occasions. This is essentially approval by the Board of Supervisors for the purchase of the low bid alternative for the temporary bridge to be deployed up at Legan Road. Bids were updated after the May 23rd meeting, and I'm bringing this item forward to meet the direction of the board to reopen that road to the public. As you may know, the request for bids is on the street as of last Wednesday for a contractor to offload, assemble, install the bridge, anchor it, and then to construct the approach roadways to get it reopened. Bid openings are the 6th of July. Questions?
Mr. Krovis, have we received information on the FEMA funding request for this particular bridge?
We have a project description that is independent of the project description for permanent repairs at the Legan Road site. It is a description for a temporary bridge to reopen to the public with descriptions and cost estimates that I have reviewed and also provided to FEMA. So it is in the works to receive a project worksheet and subsequent an authorization, a funding authorization.
And what is the amount of that FEMA reimbursement? Do we know?
About $198,000, I believe, or $190,000.
Will we be looking for funding on this temporary bridge project from OES? Or is that the total funding we're looking at?
That's the total funding from both Cal OES and FEMA.
Okay, and what is the county's match funds on that?
6.25%.
Do we have a number on that? I know it's going to be rough because we haven't got our RFP back yet. 12,000?
Yeah, maybe 11,000 is what I think.
11, 12,000? Okay. So for 11, $12,000, we get a $200,000 bridge minus installation.
Yes, the installation is approximately half. And the nature and the style of this bridge allows us to redeploy it to other sites. It allows us to buy more of the component parts to widen it or increase the span. And these bridges I've seen go as high as 200-foot span.
Okay. Any further questions, Mr. Groves?
Yes, Mr. Groves, this is Buy American, right?
This is Buy America.
Thank you.
There was an issue when this did go out to bid, and I was informed by Mr. Krovis that the bridge had to be of American construction with American steel. And I think that's a good move. Costs a little bit more money, but at least keep your job in America. Is there any further questions of Mr. Krovis? Mr. Mills? I'm sorry, Supervisor Mills?
Yeah, the point is with the teeter fund, then the remainder will go back to the teeter fund minus the 13,000 that you're still looking for.
If we are successful in our request for repayment, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And for the board's information, I am in contact with CCWD and SPI to see if they can participate in this project. But I understand that this is a community that, if you will, be in one district, but the bridge will serve the entire county at the time of need. Is there any further question of Mr. Krovis? Any further board discussion? Then I'll open it up to public comment. Would anybody like to speak? Ms. Underhill, welcome.
Good morning. Bertha Underhill, District 3 Director at CCWD. We just mentioned CCWD a few minutes ago, and CCWD is undergoing budget as you are. So let's just leave, we'll leave that aside. I do want to reemphasize, and I'm sure all of you remember the big discussion that we had on the 23rd. Was that when we were here? And things have not changed. As a matter of fact, they've gotten a little bit worse, because as we go into our summer session or the summer period, White Pines Lake is just inundated. And then you are going to be hearing about new people coming out there because of the occupancy of the ballpark. We have Tom Owens here who will address the number of people using the ballpark, and again, the access to the ballpark is non-existent unless they walk miles. Now, SPI has opened up the bridge back behind, and I was there. One of the field supervisors took me on that excursion yesterday, and it is miles to get to White Pines Lake through the back way, and Mike knows what that is. Again, it's critical. It's critical to Ebbets Pass. And it's critical to the entire county because, as we were talking before about what the tourism does to the county funding, you get that money. And I hope that you will question whoever comes up and talks about White Pines Park and the accessibility. It's very, very important. And I, of course, will answer any questions if you have any. But
Thank
as
you.
I say, you're going to be hearing specifics from the rest of our leasees. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill.
Cliff Edson, District 1. I just want to remind you how important this is to businesses that come in, because the folks that come through the county and go up to White Pines Park come past our businesses, and they become patrons. And this is how we get our tax money into the county. There's a number of folks, a great number of folks that have stopped in at my restaurant that go to White Pines from Valley Springs area. It's just, because they've been doing it for years. And not only from there, but from Sacramento and all over the Stockton, all over the valley. It's hard for people to access it right now. They have to do a lot of walking, and that creates other issues. Plus the strain that's on local businesses, and also the park maintenance itself. Consider this: if people come up here and they don't have a good experience there, they're not going to come up here next year or the year after. So this is a really good fix. It's quick. It's not going to affect general fund anywhere. Thank you guys for considering it last time, and I hope that you'll just go ahead and pass this thing along so they can get started on it right away. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Tom Owens. I represent the Courtright Emerson Ballpark. The ballpark's been in existence for almost 40 years. It was built by the community in 1980. Since then, we've had a men's league, a women's league, and in August and September, we'll have a co-ed league. We probably have close to 200 community members participating in the ballpark. Right now, we obviously thank SPI for allowing us to use their logging road. The logging road's about 2.5 miles around the lake into the ballpark. And we've been starting playing games a couple weeks ago. So the ball players know the situation. I'm trying to get them to carpool around. Some of them are actually walking in. They're parking at the picnic area at White Pines, and they walk about a half mile to play ball. So that's what we're doing. We're out there for 6 months, all the way through September. It's definitely a community ballpark. We have our tournaments are in August, in which teams from all over California come in to participate. Our tournaments are really our main fundraiser, and that's how we are able to continue the ballpark. Also, Mike, I'd like to thank Michael for the last 4 months. He's been very good at communicating with me the situation with the bridge. And I could tell, the tone of your voice, you're frustrated like everybody else is. And that, I just urge you, please, expedite this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Further comments by the public? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion. Entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Tofinelli,
Second.
second by Supervisor Mills. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 5-0. Unanimous. I'm going to get blamed for that. Madam Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank all of you. I know that the budget is tight, and there's a lot of work in the county that needs to be done. And with your dedication in that, and especially okaying the bridge, I know the Moose Lodge, the ballpark, the park, and everybody that's affiliated out there would like to thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item 28 is from the Public Works Department to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution to abandon or vacate a 50-foot future street on the subdivision map of Lake Pines, Unit 3, between Lot 400 and Lot 401. Chair, I'd just like to note that this is, it was noted as a public hearing. However, a public hearing isn't required.
Thank you. Mr. Packinger, how are you, sir?
Good morning, sir. Robert Packinger, Public Works, Interim County Surveyor. As the clerk noted, there is no statutory requirement in the Streets and Highways Code to have a public hearing for a summary vacation. This future street was dedicated on the final map in 1962 of Lakemont Pines, Unit 3. It has never been improved. It only existed on paper. The property behind the subdivision is U.S. Forest Service lands. So the applicant submitted an application to have this future street removed. He was able to get the letters from U.S. Forest Service indicating that they have no intent of improving that roadway for access. So in accordance with the Subdivision Map Act, we can use the summary vacation procedures. The summary vacation procedures are outlined in Streets and Highways Code. The procedures are standard. The resolution before you is consistent with the requirements in Streets and Highways Code. And so at this point, we would like you to approve the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Packinger. Any board discussion, staff discussion? Supervisor Mills? Oh, my apologies. Oh, I'm sorry. Got peripheral vision. Having heard no discussion, I'll open this for public comment.
George Fry, I just have a question about what happens to the 50-foot wide. I understand it must be an easement, so it's 25 foot of it on 400 and the other 25 foot is on 401, or is there an actual piece of property there that's 50 foot wide?
Mr. Packinger?
Yes, once the vacation is processed, the property lines of the adjacent properties will move to the center line of that dedicated street.
Okay. That answer your question, Mr. Fry?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Further public comment? After hearing and seeing none, we'll come back to the board. I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Supervisor Clapp,
Second.
second by Supervisor Tofinelli. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, vote motion passes 5-0, unanimous.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Mr. Packinger, I hope you got to hear earlier in the day where our Eagle Scout thanked you very much for your work on this project up in Murphy's.
Yes,
I
thank
want to
you.
make sure you got that as well. Thank you.
Good
good
job,
project.
Robert. Good job.
All right, I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a break for lunch as soon as do we have time for the next item, Madam Clerk? Okay, we're going to break early for lunch so we can have the full opportunity to discuss the next item. And we're going to return, looks like we have a comment.
I do. I'm sorry, but I am here just for this item, and I have interviews all afternoon. I just didn't know if we could possibly get it in. Thank you.
Give me a moment.
So Chair, the department has said that there's not enough time for this
Okay.
item right now.
I'm sorry, Ms. Topol. We will not be able to hear that until after lunch. Okay, we're going to be taking a lunch break we'll be back here at 1:25.